God says, I have seen every time you chose kindness when no one was watching, and now I will make the world see why I chose you. Chosen one, pause and listen not with your ears, but with your spirit. What you're hearing is not a motivational speech. It's a heavenly record being read aloud over your life. Every unseen act of patience, every quiet moment of compassion, every tear you refused to let the world see God saw it. You thought it was small, but heaven was keeping score. Nothing pure ever goes unnoticed by the eyes of the Almighty. The world calls silence weakness, but silence on earth does not mean silence in heaven. Each time you forgave when you could have fought, each time you gave when you had little, each time you stayed gentle in a cruel room, God wrote it down. You were being tested not for show but for truth. When others chased power through pride, you built power through peace. When they demanded attention, you carried stillness. When they shouted for victory, you whispered grace. Do not mistake your calm for insignificance. It was a strategy, God's strategy. While others built their towers with noise, He built your foundation in silence. Because real authority is not given to those who demand it, but to those who can carry it without collapsing. God hides His strongest soldiers in quiet places, far from the applause of men, until the appointed time. You have walked through nights that felt forgotten, seasons that felt unfair, but nothing was wasted. God was shaping your spirit for what the world will soon witness. He says, I tested you in darkness so I could reveal you in light. This is not comfort, it is confirmation. Heaven has already moved in your favor. The silence of your past was not abandonment, it was incubation. And now, the seal is breaking. The announcement has been made. You are not being overlooked, you are being unveiled. The same God who watched you kneel in tears is about to make you stand in glory. Every time you chose kindness, heaven took note. Every time you smiled at someone who ignored you, helped someone who couldn't repay you, forgave someone who didn't even ask, God saw it. You weren't being overlooked, you were being observed. What felt like ordinary moments were divine examinations, quiet tests designed to reveal who you truly are when no one is applauding. Each small act of grace became a seed planted in unseen soil. Every gesture of compassion whispered a message that reached higher than you realized. When you refused to let bitterness shape you, you proved that your spirit belonged to a different kingdom. The world calls it naivety, God calls it strategy. The world says you were wasting your time. Heaven says you were investing in eternity. Every time you stayed kind in a cruel room, you were aligning with heaven's rhythm, and that rhythm never loses its beat. Do not underestimate the value of those unnoticed moments. When you carried peace into chaos, you were rewriting atmospheres. When you gave comfort instead of criticism, you were echoing the very nature of God Himself. You were showing that strength is not measured by how loud you speak, but by how deeply you love. That is why the enemy mocked you, because he could not understand how softness could be stronger than steel. God has always used the gentle to silence the proud, the quiet to disarm the powerful, the humble to overthrow the arrogant. You may not have realized it, but every time you chose kindness, you were wielding a weapon forged in heaven. You were shaking rooms, shifting destinies, and touching hearts that power and wealth could never reach. The world saw politeness. Heaven saw authority. So, do not regret your kindness. Do not shrink from your gentleness. For it was never weakness, it was the fingerprint of God on your soul. Every time you choose to love, you declare war on darkness. Every time you refused revenge, you mirrored the mercy of Christ. And now, heaven prepares to return what you sowed. Every seed planted in tears is about to rise in glory. God never forgets a heart that loves when it has every reason not to, as C.S. Lewis wrote in The Four Loves, "There is no safe investment. To love at all is to be vulnerable." This insight underscores that your vulnerable acts of kindness, though risky, are the very investments heaven values for eternity. There are moments when you think God is testing you, but in truth, He is testing others through you. You, chosen one, have often wondered why certain encounters felt strangely significant, why a stranger's eyes lingered, why a powerful person seemed to pause when you simply said, "Thank you." It was never a coincidence. God was watching how they would treat light disguised as ordinary. You were His instrument of revelation, a living parable walking through their lives. When you opened a door, when you offered patience, when you gave respect without knowing who stood before you, heaven was staging a divine examination. Those people were not random. They were sent to reveal the condition of their own hearts. Some passed with humility, others failed with pride. But you, without even realizing it, became the measuring stick heaven used to expose authenticity. That is why your presence unsettled the proud. The light within you made them see their own darkness. God doesn't just test His servants, He also tests how the world treats His servants. Every act of kindness from you was a question posed to another soul. Can you recognize holiness when it wears humility? Many could not. They looked at you and saw someone too quiet, too soft, too insignificant. They failed to recognize that they were standing in front of a divine test they didn't study for. You were not being judged. You were the exam. While the world plays games of appearance and influence, God works in paradox. He hides royalty in rags, wisdom in whispers, and glory in gentleness. That's why He placed you there, not to impress, but to reveal. You didn't have to perform holiness, you simply embodied it. You were not sent to be seen, but to make hearts visible. Every time someone dismissed you, heaven recorded their response. Every smirk, every mockery, every cold glance, they were not against you, they were against the God you carry. And now, as seasons shift, the same eyes that once overlooked you will realize what they missed. For God is vindicating His test. Those who fail to see will watch you rise, not in arrogance, but in divine appointment. Remember this truth. You were never just being tested, you were the test. The world often mistakes kindness for weakness, softness for surrender. They see calm and assume you are blind, forgiving, and foolish. But you know something, they don't. True strength doesn't need to shout. It only needs to stand. Every time you chose peace when chaos begged for your reaction, you weren't retreating. You were mastering the battlefield no one else could see. Kindness isn't the absence of power, it's the discipline of it. Anyone can strike back, but only the strong can hold their fire and let grace do the talking. There's a difference between losing and letting go. You let go not because you're powerless, but because you're free. Free from needing to win arguments that don't matter. Free from proving yourself to people who are never listening. That's strategy, the kind that rewrites outcomes without a single raised voice. The loud ones believe dominance is victory, but dominance fades, noise fades. Yet character steady, quiet, unbending outlasts it all. You learned that power is not measured by how many people kneel to you, but by how many hearts trust you. You've seen the proud collapse under their own noise while you, in silence, kept building foundations no storm could touch. They mocked your patience because they couldn't survive a moment in it. They mistook your gentleness for ignorance because they've never known peace strong enough to stay still. But one day they will understand. What they thought was weakness was wisdom in disguise. You were never playing their game, you were playing for eternity. There is a sacred intelligence in staying kind. It disarms manipulation, exposes greed, and draws truth to the surface. When you show respect without calculation, it unsettles those who trade in performance. They can't outplay authenticity. They can't control a heart that doesn't need to compete. So keep being who you are. Keep doing good even when it's quiet. Your consistency has already shifted more than you realize. What others call naive, heaven calls noble. What they call losing, life will one day call legacy. Kindness has always been a long game, and you've been winning it from the start, One calm word, one act of mercy, one silent victory at a time. As C.S. Lewis wrote in The Problem of Pain, "The human spirit will not even begin to try to surrender self-will as long as all seems to be well with it." This truth highlights that your choice to remain kind amidst adversity reflects a surrender to God's will, forging a legacy of eternal significance. You didn't shake the ground, you shook hearts. That's the truth most people will never see. They think only thunder makes change, but heaven moves in tremors too quiet for the proud to hear. Every small gesture you made, every gentle word you spoke, every time you stayed kind when others turned cold, those moments carried the weight of an earthquake beneath the surface. A single degree can change a flight path by hundreds of miles. The pilot doesn't feel it at takeoff, but the landing is a different world. That's what your kindness did. You shifted destinies by one act of grace. You redirected someone's spirit from despair to hope, from cynicism to belief. You didn't just make them smile, you changed their course. That's not a weakness, that's divine engineering. You thought it was nothing, but heaven called it data, a record, a vibration that echoed through timelines. In a world addicted to performance, you moved differently. While others shouted for attention, you built trust in silence. While they posted to be seen, you acted to be sincere. The energy behind that is unstoppable. Clean energy never dies, it multiplies. Imagine a hallway filled with noise, everyone fighting to be noticed. Then you steady, calm, help someone pick up what they dropped. Nobody claps, nobody records. But somewhere, a chain reaction begins. Someone powerful was watching. Someone whose spirit was tired of noise felt something shift. Your small act became their reminder that goodness still lives here. That's why the earth didn't need to quake for heaven to respond. God doesn't need explosions to prove he's working. He uses small hinges to turn great doors. He used your quiet compassion to open gates that shouting could never touch. And now those gates are beginning to move. When people talk about miracles, they imagine lightning. But sometimes miracles look like patience, like restraint, like a simple act that seems invisible until it isn't. That's how God writes his biggest stories, through subtle hands, through hearts that don't seek the spotlight. You may not have felt it, but your kindness cracked the surface of something larger. Fault lines of pride, greed, and fear began to tremble. And somewhere deep beneath it all, destiny shifted in your favor. Remember this, earthquakes don't ask permission, neither does grace. What you gave quietly is now rumbling loudly in unseen places, preparing to reveal how powerful a gentle soul can truly be. Some people walk into your life looking ordinary, but inside they are crumbling. They have everything the world can offer, wealth, status, influence, but they've lost the one thing that keeps the soul alive, faith in humanity. You met someone like that once, and you didn't even know it. You thought you were just being polite, just helping a stranger. But in that small moment, something sacred happened. Behind their calm expression was exhaustion. They had stopped believing in sincerity, because every smile they saw came with an invoice. Every friendship had a price tag. Every word of praise was a transaction. They were surrounded by people, yet starving for truth. Then you appeared not dressed for attention, not chasing approval, just quietly being yourself. And that energy, that rare authenticity, cut through the noise like sunlight in a locked room. You didn't inspire them with speeches. You didn't try to fix them. You simply were. That was enough. Your kindness reminded them that real still exists. You didn't rescue their career, you rescued their hope. And that is something no amount of money can buy. They went home that night and thought about you longer than they expected to. They couldn't explain why. It was just a look, a smile, a gesture, but it carried peace. It was the first honest connection they'd felt in years. You didn't just make them feel seen. You made them want to live again. Imagine a forest burned to ash, smoke still rising, and in the middle, stands one green tree that somehow survived. That was you. You were proof that good things can outlast the fire. You didn't try to be anyone's miracle, yet your quiet decency became one. And here's the truth. Few understand. When you bring light to someone who thought light was gone, heaven records it as resurrection. What you did wasn't small, it was sacred. Because somewhere in that exchange, something eternal moved. So don't underestimate the power of simple kindness. You never know whose soul it might revive. You didn't just cross paths with a billionaire. You crossed paths with someone whose heart had gone numb, and your compassion restarted it. What felt like an ordinary encounter was, in truth, divine surgery. You didn't save a person's day. You saved their faith. There are people who fill rooms with noise, and there are those who shift the atmosphere just by standing in it. You belong to the second kind. Before you ever spoke, your presence had already said everything. The peace you carried didn't demand attention. It commanded it. It was the kind of calm that makes even the restless stop and take notice. You never needed to announce who you were because authenticity introduces itself. The energy around you didn't compete, it corrected. When you entered spaces filled with ego, tension, or hidden agendas, something changed. People couldn't name it, but they felt it. A sudden quiet, a deeper breath, a subtle realignment. It was as if your soul carried gravity, and everything unstable had to settle. That is the silent authority of a kind heart. It doesn't shout to be heard, it resonates. It doesn't try to convince, it simply is. And that quiet power, that unspoken integrity, is what the powerful crave most. Those who live surrounded by performance and pretense long to feel that kind of truth. They sense it the moment it enters the room. Science says people decide if they trust you within seconds, long before a single word leaves your mouth. What they actually feel is the consistency of your spirit, the steadiness of your energy. While others chase charisma, you embody calm. While others talk to be seen, you listen to understand. That difference creates gravity, and gravity draws things in. Imagine a lighthouse during a storm. The waves roar, the winds scream, but the light doesn't move, it simply shines. Ships don't argue with the light. They adjust their course to it. That's you. You don't chase validation. You don't beg to belong. You stand firm, and those meant for you find their way to your presence. The truth is, presence like yours can't be bought, copied, or rehearsed. It's forged in the fires of waiting, of silence, of staying true when no one notices. Every quiet season you endured was shaping that aura of peace around you. You didn't lose anything by staying gentle. You gained the kind of strength that makes even chaos yield. So when you walk into a room and the air shifts, don't downplay it. That's not a coincidence. That's confirmation. You are not ordinary background noise. You are frequency, stability, light, and those who recognize it will never forget it, because real peace leaves fingerprints on every soul it touches. They laughed when you forgave. They laughed when you stayed silent. They laughed when you chose peace over pride. But what they didn't know was that every time they mocked you, heaven pressed record. While they saw weakness, heaven saw evidence, proof that your faith was not just talk, but truth lived out in real time. You stood there, calm and composed, while others threw words like stones. You could have defended yourself, you could have exposed their lies, but you didn't. You chose stillness over noise, grace over reaction. And though the crowd thought you lost, heaven saw a victory written in invisible ink. The world turned its back, but heaven kept the camera rolling. There are moments when silence is louder than speech, when restraint becomes a roar. Those moments define your authority. The true test of strength isn't how you act when people cheer for you, but how you respond when they sneer at you. Anyone can look holy when praised. Only the chosen stay kind when provoked. They thought they were laughing at you, but in truth, they were revealing themselves. Every insult, every smirk, every attempt to humiliate you became a mirror that reflected their own emptiness. The more they tried to tear you down, the more clearly heaven saw who was truly standing tall. You must understand this. Heaven's justice is not instant, but it is exact. God doesn't rush vindication, he choreographs it. He lets mockers build their own stage, only so that when truth walks in, the contrast is undeniable. When the time comes, the same audience that mocked will become witnesses to your rise. And it won't be revenge, it will be revelation. There's a reason God tells you to hold your peace, because your silence gives him space to speak. When you stay calm, you let the divine camera capture the purity of your heart without distortion. The noise fades, the lights dim, and what remains is truth. So the next time they laugh, let them. The sound of mockery never reaches as high as the sound of faith. Keep standing, keep choosing peace. For while the world turns its back, heaven is filming your story, every act of patience, every ounce of restraint, every quiet victory. One day, that footage will play back for all to see, and every frame will declare the same truth. You didn't lose by being kind, you won by being consistent. The people you meet are not accidents, they are assignments. Every encounter, every conversation, every face you pass by has a purpose woven into it. That random stranger you helped on a weary afternoon, the one you almost ignored, was not random at all. They were sent, and so were you. Life is not a series of coincidences. It is a tapestry of divine appointments, disguised as ordinary moments. Sometimes the universe hides its greatest tests in plain sight. The person you were kind to in a rush, the one who barely said thank you, may have been the very soul God placed in your path to see whether your goodness depends on gratitude. You didn't know you were being observed, but you were. Heaven watches the unseen exams. Think about how a king once walked among his people in disguise, testing their hearts to see who would honor him even when he looked poor. You have done the same without realizing it. You offered kindness without costume, humility without audience, and compassion without reward. That is why you passed the test, because you didn't even know there was one. The stranger was never just a person. They were a mirror, reflecting who you truly are when no one is keeping score. Some ignored them, some judged them, but you stopped. You listened. You helped. And in that moment, you revealed that your love was not conditional, it was consistent. That's the kind of heart heaven can trust with bigger things. You see, divine order hides meaning beneath chaos. The people you meet are threads, each one connecting you to your next season. The ones you help may one day open doors you never imagined. But even if they don't, you've already unlocked something greater, alignment. Each act of compassion places you in rhythm with heaven's flow, bringing you closer to what's truly meant for you. So, stop calling it a coincidence when you meet someone who stirs something deep inside. Stop saying it's random when opportunities appear right after an act of grace. The truth is simpler and stronger. You are walking in divine choreography. The stranger you helped was not a test of morality. It was a rehearsal for destiny. And you, without fanfare or awareness, passed it flawlessly. One day, you'll see the full picture the moment your kindness became the key that turned heaven's lock. Nothing in your life has been random, not even the pain. Every disappointment, every silent heartbreak, every season of delay was shaping something precise. The reward that is coming to you is not a generic blessing. It has been measured, molded, and matched to the very places you bled. There is no wasted suffering in the hands of God. What you thought broke you was actually blueprinting you. Every tear fell into the soil of promise, and heaven took measurements. The doors that will soon open are not random gifts. They are responses. What once wounded you will now witness your restoration. You were being prepared for a reward so accurate, so perfectly aligned, that it could only fit you. The waiting wasn't punishment, it was calibration. God didn't delay to deny you. He delayed to design something worthy of you. There are blessings that cannot be rushed because they require your scars to heal first. Otherwise, you wouldn't recognize them as yours. Sometimes, heaven waits until the ache in your heart matches the shape of the miracle it's sending. Think of a key and a lock. Both are shaped by resistance, by pressure, by cutting. That's what happened to you. The sharp edges of your journey weren't cruelty, they were craftsmanship. Now, the door that has resisted everyone else will open easily at your touch. It wasn't locked against you, it was locked for you. You have paid in patience, endured in silence, and kept your heart clean when it would have been easier to turn cold. That's why this reward will feel familiar. It will speak the same language as your endurance. It will not arrive to impress you. It will arrive to heal you. And when it comes, you'll understand why nothing else worked. Every no protected the timing. Every detour led you closer to the intersection where pain meets purpose. You'll see that the blessings of God are never overgenerous. They are exact. Not too early, not too late, not too much, not too little. Just right. The season you're walking into is not payback, it's precision. The world will call it luck, but heaven calls it justice. And when the reward arrives, you won't need to prove yourself anymore. The reward itself will testify. This is what happens when a heart stays kind through the storm. The world has a strange way of defining worth. It counts followers, titles, numbers, and noise, but heaven counts something entirely different. It counts integrity, endurance, and faithfulness. You were never poor, you were simply being mispriced. While others inflated their value with image, you built your worth with character. The time has come for the market of heaven to correct what the world undervalues. For years you watched people rise quickly, loud voices, confident masks, hollow crowns. You wondered why your quiet consistency went unseen. But slow growth isn't failure, it's depth. Fast fruit rots, deep roots last. You weren't hidden because you were forgotten, you were hidden because you were rare. Diamonds don't sit on display before they're cut. Every time you worked with honesty when no one thanked you, every time you chose truth when it cost you, you were investing in spiritual equity. The world didn't notice, but God did. And now, what was invisible will become undeniable. You've built value the right way from the inside out. Powerful people will soon recognize what they once overlooked. They will realize that your calm, your reliability, and your grace under pressure are things they cannot buy. The same people who once underestimated you will begin to depend on you. They will search for your steadiness, like thirsty travelers search for water. Because when chaos rises, fake strength collapses, but true strength endures. Do not resent the years you were ignored. They were your training ground. God was refining your credibility so that when the door opened, you wouldn't have to beg to enter. You would be invited. You wouldn't need to prove your worth. Your worth would be proven by time. And when you rise, and you will, it won't look like revenge. It will look like restoration. Those who laughed will be silent, not because you punished them, but because your peace will speak louder than any payback. You will stand not above them, but beyond them. Remember, money fades, titles change, platforms crumble, but character compounds. The real asset is the person who cannot be shaken by applause or destroyed by criticism. That is you. You are wealth in motion, legacy in flesh, a living investment of heaven. The season of small recognition is ending. The world is about to see what heaven has always known. You are the value, not your success, not your possessions, not your name. You are the steady heartbeat of something eternal, and when the world finally adjusts its scales, they'll see the truth they missed all along. You were never trying to become important, you already were. Father in heaven, thank you for seeing what others could not see. Thank you for watching over every quiet act, every small mercy, every tear that fell in faith and not in bitterness. You have recorded every moment of obedience in your book, and nothing was wasted. Every delay was discipline, every silence was shaping, every loss was protection. Tonight, I lift my hands not in frustration, but in surrender. I release the need to understand why it took so long, and I embrace the truth that you were working even when I couldn't see it. You never forgot me. You never turned away. You were building something that eyes could not yet perceive. Lord, I ask you to breathe on every seed I've sown in kindness. Let the harvest come in, your perfect timing, not as payback, but as purpose. Let every place where I was wounded become an altar of testimony. Turn my scars into sentences that tell of your faithfulness. Turn my waiting into wisdom that guides others home. I pray for those who mocked me while you were molding me. Bless them, even if they don't understand. Let them see through my peace that your justice is love in motion. And when the tables turn, keep my heart soft enough to still serve, because vindication without humility is just another form of pride. Father, make me a vessel of quiet strength. Let me carry peace into places that have forgotten what peace feels like. When I speak, let my words heal. When I'm silent, let my silence speak. Give me discernment to recognize divine appointments, the moments that look random but are written by your hand. And for every person who crossed my path, whether to help or to harm, I pray that my presence left a trace of light. May my kindness echo long after I leave the room. May it remind them that truth and goodness are still alive. Now I stand before you, not as someone seeking reward, but as someone ready to be used. Use my story as proof that kindness still wins. Use my life as living evidence that heaven keeps its promises. Let my reward be not only what I receive, but who I become. A person unshaken by chaos, unbroken by rejection, unbought by fame, anchored only in you. I seal this prayer in faith, with gratitude and reverence, knowing that the same God who watched me cry in silence will now let me shine in peace. What began in hidden pain will end in open glory. Amen.